In this edition of Back in History, we present to you the life and times of Vice President Saulos Chilima, the Vice President of Malawi who died in a helicopter crash while still in office, leaving behind the President, members of cabinet, and several family members and friends to mourn his death. He was young and full of energy and had so much ahead of him in the politics of Malawi and Africa. We present to you his birth, parentage, education, political career, his years as Vice President, and his untimely death in a helicopter crash in his home country of Malawi. Welcome to this edition of Back in History. Vice President Saulos Chilima was the first child of Mr. Henderson Brown Chilima of Chinganga village in Lilongwe in the Republic of Malawi. Vice President Chilima was born on 12 February 1973. His mother's name is Elizabeth Frances Chilima. While growing up, Vice President Chilima spent most of his early life in Blantyre, where his parents were working, and spent his summer holidays with his paternal and maternal grandparents in Lilongwe and Chu, respectively. He had a loving family growing up and also had loving relatives around him. When Vice President Chilima became of age for enrollment in school, he was enrolled by his parents at the HHI and Darap primary schools, and upon completion of his primary education, he was enrolled at the Marist Brothers Mtendere Secondary School, Twewi, in Dedza district. He thereafter gained admission to study social sciences in the University of Malawi, from where he graduated in 1994. He thereafter worked for a number of years and then went back to the University of Malawi to pursue a master's degree in knowledge management. He completed his studies and graduated in 2006. Hungry for more knowledge, Vice President Chilima enrolled for a PhD in knowledge management at the University of Bolton in the United Kingdom. On 10th August 2015, he received the PhD certificate upon completion of his PhD program. In February 2014, Chilima was the running mate of Democratic Progressive Party DPP presidential candidate Peter Mutharika for the May 2014 presidential election. Chilima later left the DPP and founded his own political party, the United Transformation Movement (UTM), on 21st July 2018 to contest the May 2019 elections. On 1st February 2019, the UTM held meetings with two other political parties and an alliance of smaller political parties aimed at forming a united opposition. These political parties agreed to field one presidential candidate for the election in their bid to dislodge the big political parties. In the election, Chilima, alongside Michael Uzi as a running mate, came third with 20.24% of the popular vote, and the UTM won 4 seats in the National Assembly. However, the presidential election was annulled and rerun in 2020. In that year, Chilima contested the race as Lazarus Chakwera's running mate for the Malawi Congress Party in the Tonse Alliance, which brought up to 9 opposition political parties with hopes to topple the administration of President Peter Mutharika. The alliance paid off, and Lazarus Chakwera was elected as president, with Chilima elected as vice president. Chakwera and Chilima were then sworn in to pilot the affairs of Malawi. It should be noted that before his venture into politics, Dr. Chilima was a successful boardroom man, having worked at the management cadre and top echelon of many multinational companies, including Unilever, Coca-Cola, and Airtel Malawi, where he rose to become the first indigenous chief executive officer of the company. Upon venturing into politics, he also served in various capacities. He served as Minister of Economic Planning and Development, as well as Head of Public Sector Reforms, a position he also previously held under the administration of former President Peter Mutharika. He also carried on several other assignments for the government of Malawi, both before his ascension to power as Vice President and while serving as Vice President. He had a beautiful career in politics and was increasingly popular among the several divides in the country. He also had the other side of politics when he was charged in 2022 on allegation of receipt of $280,000 from a British businessman, Zuneth Sata, in exchange for awarding government contracts to two companies linked to Sata. President Chakwera was accused of witch-hunting the vice president through the corruption charges. The vice president pleaded not guilty to the charge, and in May 2024, a month before his death, the corruption charges were dropped, perhaps for want of evidence to sustain the charges. With his rising career in the politics of Malawi, several analysts and commentators have said that Chilima had the prospect of becoming the president of Malawi and was indeed a force to reckon with in the upcoming election. But death had a different plan for him. On 10th June 2024, a plane carrying Vice President Chilima and 9 other passengers crashed in Chikangawa Forest Reserve in Zimba district when it took off from Malawi's capital Lilongwe and did not land at its planned destination of Mzuzu Airport. It has been reported that the plane was unable to land at the airport due to poor visibility and was ordered to return to Lilongwe prior to the crash. The helicopter could not make it back to safety. It crashed and was no more seen on the radar. Hours later, a presidential statement was issued announcing to the nation that the helicopter carrying the vice president and 9 others, including crew members, was missing. One day after, the wreckage of the helicopter was found, and in a national address made by the President Lazarus Chakwera, the people of Malawi were informed that the vice president and all other passengers on board the aircraft have been confirmed dead in the crash. The news of the crash and the death of the passengers threw the nation of Malawi into mourning. The helicopter in issue was a Donia 228 aircraft of the Malawi Defense Force. The aircraft was on its way to the funeral of former government minister Ralph Kasambara. There were senior government officials in the delegation, and also in the plane was former First Lady of Malawi, Patricia Chanel Muluzi. This is the story of how the promising life and career of Vice President Chilima was brought to an untimely end. He woke up in the morning, took his bath, dressed up in his best attire, bid his wife and children farewell, and stepped into a helicopter in the company of others, hoping to attend the funeral of a former government official and hoping to return to his family and to his work after the funeral. As a mere mortal, Vice President Chilima had no premonition of what was waiting for him in the air. He never knew that he would not return home in one piece. He never knew that the farewell to his wife and family was actually the last family assignment to be performed by him. Vice President Chilima was a devout Catholic Christian. He was married to Mary Chilima, and the marriage was blessed with 2 children, namely Shane and Elizabeth. Vice President Chilima will be sorely missed by many across Malawi and across Africa. One of the groups that will sorely miss Vice President Chilima is the Igbo community in Malawi. The Igbos are from Nigeria. They are predominantly businessmen and women who carry on businesses in their home country of Nigeria and in almost every corner of the world. The Igbos have been in Malawi with their families for several decades and have contributed immensely to the economy of the country. They import tons of goods into the country and also exports from the country, and in the process, the Igbos have contributed immensely in the stimulation of the economy of Malawi. Vice President Chilima acknowledged this fact and chose to identify prominently with the Igbos. On a number of occasions, Vice President Chilima wore the Igbo traditional attire to the admiration of many. This was his own way of identifying with and appreciating the efforts of the Igbos in the growth of the economy of Malawi. The Igbos will miss him sorely following his untimely death. The people of Malawi and other African countries will also miss him sorely, especially the youth population of Africa. The president of Malawi has declared 21 days of national mourning following the helicopter crash, and funeral activities have already begun for the final interment of the vice president. He was a Catholic, and a consecrated funeral mass has already been celebrated in his honor. For us in the Back in History firm, we express our heartfelt sympathy for the family of Vice President Chilima and the families of all other passengers who lost their lives in the ill-fated helicopter crash. We pray the Almighty Creator to grant repose to the souls of the departed and to grant comfort, healing, and closure to the families left behind by the deceased persons. Thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notification on every new video. I remain your friend and host Ekemi Nudim, wishing you the best of time as you continue to walk with me on this mission to document the history of Africa for today and tomorrow.